Well, welcome to another episode of BikeSocial's Full Chat. And I'm here today to talk about showroom secrets and how you can feel more confident the next time you go into a dealership. With me today is Martin Freeman. Martin, welcome to BikeSocial.
Hello.
First of all. Martin, thank you. Martin is a man with great experience in the motorcycle trade, buying and selling bikes for over 8 years, but has been out of that side of things for long enough to remain impartial, so he tells me.
Poacher turned gamekeeper.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
Well put. So the main questions we're going to try and answer today really are about how does a dealership work, where are the benefits for the customer, where are the benefits for the dealer. It's all about trying to open up, not necessarily the secrets, but just try and find out a little bit more about how you can, literally you can walk in and try and strike the best deal for yourself the next time you buy, either buying a new bike or a used bike, and what kind of tricks of the trade there are. Let's try and get behind them and really work out, how we can all get the best deal. And that's the best deal for not only the customer but also the dealer as well. It's it's a business after all, as opposed to a charity. So Martin, first of all, what in your position as a salesman, when a customer walks through that door and you spot him and you know he's going to be your target, let's call him, and he's your bike. What are you sort of first things that go through your mind? Do you judge a book by its cover? Do you look at how he's presented, how he's sort of walking in? Is he broad-shouldered? Is he hunched?
You judge everybody the same. It doesn't matter what they look like. Invariably, a lot of people that come into a bike dealership, it's their leisure time. So if it's like me, it's an Iron Maiden t-shirt and a pair of jeans, you know. So you never judge a book. For me personally, you do the meet and greet and you treat everybody the same. You know, you get to know your customer, and that is the start then of, in theory, the bike buying process. Because even at the meet and greet, you get to spend a little bit of relaxed time with a customer before you go on to the more formal qualifications as to what they want to use the bike for. You know, it might be somebody turning up on a Fireblade that wants a Panigale, so he's in his one-piece race levers, or it might be, a couple that want to buy a big BMW for touring. So everybody is treated the same, and it's all about then sitting down and listening to what the customer wants out of their biking experience, and then hopefully starting to structure what is effectively a business transaction that is obviously beneficial to the dealership, but is also beneficial to the customer, because ultimately you want that customer to recommend you and come back in the future to buy another bike.
Of course. And is it safe to say that with the influx of social media reviews, let's call them, does that play in your mind? Do you think, right, I've got to treat this customer right because I don't want them to say bad things about me or the dealership on the internet? Yeah,
I mean, we live in a world now where bad news spreads immediately. Unfortunately, as a nation of people, we're never very good at shouting about how good an experience we've had. You've only got to look at online forums and Facebook and various sorts of social media channels to find all the bad experiences. But no, I mean, if as a salesman, as a dealership, if you are confident in your customer experience that you give, that, to be fair to me, is the last thing in the back of my mind. Ultimately, I want to build a relationship with the customer because I want the customer to come back to me. If I'm still at the dealership in a couple of years' time when they want to renew, I want them to walk through the door and say, "Is Martin Freeman in? I had a great time with him last time. He looked after me." If not, and I've gone, ultimately you want them to remain with the dealership. So no, you deal, as a customer, you deal with one person at the dealership. As a salesman, you deal with hundreds. So after a period of time, you just forget about all that.
It's up to the salesman to make that customer feel as though you're their mate. Or you're trustworthy.
Yes. People, there's an old saying in sales, people will always buy from people. I never professed to get it right all the time, never did, but I like to think I got it right most of the time. And that, since I've been out of the trade, I have several of my customers, both cars and bikes, that have retained as friends, and I'm proud of that relationship that I built up with the guys. And still to this day, my friends now will contact me and say, "Can you recommend X, Y, and Z? What do you think to this?" So And I see that as a good, true testament of building a rapport with a customer.
So if a customer walks into the dealership and gets approached by yourself or a salesman who says, "Hello, I'm Joe Bloggs. What are you interested in today, or can I help you today?" What should the customer say or do? It's just best to be honest, right? To just open that channel of communication.
It is, yeah.
Rather than feeling confronted.
9 times out of 10 you get the, "I'm just browsing." In fact, sometimes before you've even spoke to a customer, you get the, "I'm just browsing." Because a customer is naturally fearful when he walks in a dealership, and I don't care who you are, you always have that in the back of your mind that at some point, if you get what I call the Sunday crowd that like to come and have a wander around, because a motorcycle dealership is a very social environment. But then you've got the customers that will walk in that want to do a business transaction, and they're automatically feeling at the end of however long this process is going to take, somebody's going to want some money out of me, and we don't like parting with money. So immediately when you meet and greet the customer, my advice to a potential customer is just be honest. Look, I'm looking for a bike. I've done my homework, because we've all got an iPad, a phone, a laptop. We're all on the internet. 9 times out of 10, we all know what we want to buy. Chances are we've already seen it on the dealer's website, especially if it's a used bike. So what we want to do is have a look at it without the pressure of that salesman. So just be honest to the salesman and say, "Look, I've seen X, Y and Z on your website. I want to have a little look at it. Can you tell me where it is? I've got my partner with me, or if you're on your own, just give us 5 minutes, we'll give you a shout." Just be honest. But I'm just browsing. It's immediately the barriers are gone up, and it makes it very hard from a sales point of view then to try and, sort of, that salesman wants to sell you a bike because that's his livelihood. That's what pays his mortgage, feeds his kids, But just be open with a guy or girl. That's my best advice.
Sure.
And get the footing off straight away on a good footing, and get that relationship there, because the guy will leave you alone. If he's worth his salt, he's already got one eye on you walking around the showroom, and as a salesman, you always know when somebody wants to talk to you because they make direct eye contact with you. And especially on a busy Sunday, because you could have loads and loads of people in a dealership, because it is a social thing. You get lots of people on ride-outs that have come for a cup of tea, and they'll always come and have a look around. Some of the dealerships I've worked in, whether it's had inbuilt cafe facilities or somewhere on site to get something to eat, is brilliant, because people are fed and watered. They've come in for a browse and invariably gone, "Do you know what, I'll have that. Can you give me a price on my bike while I'm here?" Of course I can.
I would always, if I were a salesman, I always want to talk to them about their bikes. And that's just
absolutely.
It's a natural, because like you say, motorcycling is more about a hobby, it's about the lifestyle,
Exactly.
It's about that communication, that social aspect.
And to be fair, a lot of the salespeople, 99% of them are bikers.
Yeah.
That's what we like to do. The fact that we have to work weekends, because that's when you guys are off and spending your money, is irrelevant. But invariably, when we go home at night, we might take a demonstrator home, to learn about our product. It might be that our own bike is sat out there in the car park, because we're bikers. It's purchasing a bike is something that you do from the heart. It's an emotional purchase most of the time. Unlike buying a car, which 9 times out of 10 is a necessity. So it's kind of a different set of rules, and emotions get involved quite a lot through the process, as I'm sure we'll talk about.
Sure, exactly. Well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty then. So it must be a fairly obvious statement to say that a salesman, a dealership would prefer to sell a new bike than a used bike.
To be very careful now. Not necessarily. Walk into any mainstream Japanese manufacturer, you will see headline finance rates. All that's got to be funded somewhere. So the margins across used bikes, contrary to popular belief, are very low. It's a fiercely competitive market out there. 10, 15 years ago, you got the big four. You got your Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Yamaha. But now you've got a lot of other players in that market. You've got Ducati, you've got Harley Davidson, Triumph, BMW, all what used to be perceived, and still are to some degree, as prestige manufacturers, but they offer a range now that appeals to a broader audience. Then you've got obviously your Chinese mates coming in, which are proving very popular for the commuter market and the younger rider. So all of a sudden you've got a massive marketplace. So each dealer's got to try and compete within that. So margins are cut and cut and cut to the bone. Used bikes, yes, if you've done your homework right and you've struck a decent deal on a part exchange, or as a dealer you've been to auction to buy stock, if you've done your buying process right, you can make some money back. There are other ways in terms of a dealership where they will make money, which is the finance. You know, it's a lot of people go, oh, dirty word. Well, no, it's not actually. You have to fund your bike somehow. You know, at some point when you sit down with a customer and you ask them the question, how do you normally fund your purchase? You usually invariably get that cash. Okay, well, where does the cash come from? Is it out of your savings? Have you got a bank loan? You know, at some point they've had an influx of money that they want to use. Because we've still got this perception that dealer supplied finance is massively over the top.
Is it?
No, I don't think it is. I think a lot of it is down to the dealer sitting down and actually explaining about the products that they sell, but giving the benefit to the customer. You know, there isn't one size fits all. It's all individually tailored. And there are various fors and against for a customer. You know, it might be that you've got your own money from somewhere. It might be that they are using the savings. They probably had a very good year in business. The accountant said you need to get rid of some. Oh, who knows? You never know. But at some point, they're getting the money from somewhere.
So if a customer walked in with a big bag of cash, or for want of a better expression, they had the facility or the ability to pay cash. Does that give them more flexibility or does that give the salesman more flexibility with the deal they can offer? Would they prefer cash? Or?
Not necessarily, no. No. Any dealer would want to try and finance a bike because, as with any product, there is always some form of commission.
Right.
The same with insurance-related products. You know, we all live in a society where somebody's always trying to sell us something because it's of potential benefit to us, and dealerships are no different. So there's always money to be made there. Somebody that comes in and says, "There's me $5,000. I'm going to take that now." All you've got is the margin on the bike.
Sure.
You know, you've missed the opportunity for extra bits. And let's be right about it. Profit isn't a dirty word. Lots of people go, I'm not happy about you making that much money. Well, you want to come to this dealership on a Sunday for a ride out with your mates. We offer beautiful facilities. We offer you great tea and coffee. You've got a facility to have something to eat. You know, you can buy your accessories. It doesn't come for free. At some point down the line, it's got to be paid for. And the way a lot of dealerships, certainly in the prestige side of the motorcycle market, the dealerships are getting bigger and bigger. They're lovely places to be, they're bright, they're airy, but that's got to be paid for, you know. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to the fact that as a buyer and as a seller, it's a business transaction. And that kind of emotion needs to come away from that ultimate end goal.
So is a salesman more likely to try and get that finance deal arranged for the customer, not only for their own, to be able to feed their kids, and also to make sure that the lights are on and the tea and coffee are decent enough, but also because it might work out as a better deal for the customer?
It can be, yes. I mean, in terms of in terms of finance, you have a whole array. You've only got to look at any daytime telly programme. There's lots of finance and loans available. The good thing about a dealer, and I will sit on the side of the dealer on this one, dealer supplied packages are invariably from either the manufacturer's own in-house finance facility, or it's from an outside lender that is fully geared up. If you look at a certain four-legged creature that's black, they provide a lot of finance for dealers.
And goes nay.
Goes nay, yes. The good bit about that is that, let's say you take a PCP route, the finance company then have an interest in that bike. So let's say, for instance, something goes wrong with the bike. you speak to the dealer, I've got a problem with my engine. Oh, no, you need to pay that. Well, no, I think it should be done under warranty.
Sure.
The argument starts. The good bit about a dealer finance is you've got this guy or this entity sat here with a financial interest in that bike. They then wade into the equation and say, well, we own part of that. We would like it fixed. So all of a sudden you've got a lot more backup than you would have, say, funding it through a bank loan.
So let's look at the options here. So PCP, personal contract purchase, dealer finance. Is that the same thing?
Yes.
And how would you best explain PCP today? So perhaps
PCP. Okay. If you, like most bikers I've come across, and indeed myself, if you only keeping a bike a couple of years, because invariably a manufacturer will bring out something shinier, better paint, it's got this, that and the other, we're going to want it. We are, as bikers, we're like magpies. Anything that's shiny, we're straight on it. A PCP is ideal in that situation because you are never going to keep the bike for a long time. You do get customers that do keep the bikes 5, 6, 7 years, in which case a PCP is no good because a PCP will only over be 2, 3 or 4 years. The idea of it is you put down a small deposit at the front, you take, which if you were to look at the bike on this wall, your deposit has just bought the front wheel. Your monthly payments, depending on what term you've taken, will take you to the rear of the back seat. And then to buy the back wheel and the rear subframe, that's your guaranteed future value at the end. The idea is when we get to this point, where the end of the rider's seat is, we trade it in. And in theory, providing the maths are done right, and finance companies have some very, very clever ways and algorithms now to work this out. When you go back to the dealer and trade it in because you want the next shiny model, the guaranteed future value is less than what the bike's actually worth. You've just generated your deposit to repurchase the front wheel. And you go again. And the idea of a PCP all the way along is to generate good quality used stock, because the dealer's just taken in your 2-year-old bike. He's then got a beautiful bike to put out on his used pitch. He then gets a second chance to sell it to a customer with a finance package, with any add-ons, with accessories, and he's also given the chance through service department to carry on servicing that bike to another customer. So it's a win-win.
Big circle of bikes. The same bike gets sold new, comes back, gets sold used, comes back,
and gets sold used ad infinitum.
Yeah, and he can earn money out of the initial package through the finance deal, the initial finance deal.
Yes.
He can earn money out of the second package, i.e. when it becomes used for the first time.
Yeah.
From add-ons and another finance package. Now, PCP doesn't work on a used bike?
PCP does work on a used bike.
Right.
I've been out to trade a reasonable length of time now, what the exact terms and conditions are, but you normally at least get sort of years 2, 3 and 4 on a PCP. After that, you would have to check with the individual finance companies as to what terms they do.
And is it, do customers still see PCP and finance as dirty words?
Yes. And I find my own experience is down to the dealership not fully explaining what a PCP is.
Right.
You know, I have come across instances in the past where, you know, people that have kept a bike or want to keep the bike for 4 or 5 years have been sold a 3-year PCP. So all of a sudden at the end they've got this huge guaranteed future value that they've got to pay off. Now, it can be that the dealer can arrange a finance package to then pay that off at the end and carry on paying for the bike. It might be that the customer loves his bike that much, he really does want to keep it. But in essence, a PCP is designed at people that change on a regular change cycle.
And for the customer, is there any advice that you would have in terms of negotiation? How much room for manoeuvre is there in a PCP deal?
There isn't a lot of room for manoeuvre on the exact deal. It's all going to come down to the balance to change, invariably. A lot of people get hung up on how much their part exchange is worth, because we've all sat at home on Auto Trader, we all have a perceived value. What people don't realise is what goes on behind the scenes in the dealer.
Right, interesting.
When a customer trades a bike in order for that dealer to then try and resell it, it's got to go through the workshop, because you wouldn't want to buy a bike that's not been checked by a professional.
Of course.
Yeah? It may need a service. It may need a set of tyres. All these things are now starting to add up. Yes, if the dealer's done his job right, he's taken that into account in the part exchange price. But ultimately, the service department will charge the sales department service, tyres, MOT, if it's applicable. You wouldn't want to buy a bike without some form of protection in the form of a warranty or a guarantee. So somewhere along the line, that's got to be factored in, because depending on the bike, it can be quite expensive. You then, the profit that you make on that, ultimately of what's left, the government want their cut in the terms of VAT. So there's 20% straight gone. So all of a sudden, when you see your bike on Auto Trader at £5,000, the dealer's gone, well, actually, we think it's worth £3,000. You perceive £2,000, dare I say it, rip-off that you're trying to do, has all of a sudden shrunk. Yeah. So actually, the dealer only tends to then come out with £500 or £600. Try and go and buy that used bike, and you say, "No, I want a better price than that. Come on, you can do me 800-900 quid off of that." Well, actually, no, because the dealer hasn't got that. And I take it back to the start of the conversation. The dealer is in business to make money, just like Tesco's are in business to make money. Your greengrocer, whichever people that are in business do it purely to make some money. So in terms of finance, there's not a lot of room to manoeuvre. Yes, there's a bit, because obviously, in a way of arranging, depending on the setup of the dealer, they will get some form of finance commission. But if you're looking at a deal as a whole, the bigger picture, you've got these lots of little pots of money and little bits of profit here and there. There is some way of getting a deal that is right for the customer. So going back to the start of the conversation, a customer walking in with just saying, "I want to pay that on my debit card and I'll take it now," he's probably actually not going to get as better deal as if he would go the finance route, because there's lots of other bits and pieces a customer has movement on.
Sure, and is that down to add-ons? Is a customer, so we can talk about lots of different types of add-ons, such as gap insurance, and we'll come on to that in just a second, extended warranty, tyre insurance even, paint protection, all these different elements. Is that where the negotiation comes, or the better proposed deal for a customer comes?
You've got, for both customer and dealer, you've got the add-on bits and pieces. Can we have that as added value to help the deal along? Yeah. Again, is it down to the fact that a dealer's actually not sitting down and qualifying the customer correctly? Gap insurance, dare we talk about it? Guaranteed asset protection. It's an insurance policy. We all have our own opinions on insurance policies. I have to be very careful because of who your masters are. We all have our own opinions on that. Is insurance benefit to us, especially when it's not compulsory, like the law says we have to ride on the road? Can you afford to replace your bike if you have a write-off? If it gets stolen and it's the insurance company writes it off. If you, hopefully not, have an accident and the bike's written off, can you go out there and pay for your bike? I would suggest not a lot of people can outright go out there and do it, especially if you've got finance on it, because at some point that finance needs settling. So if you've got a fairly stacked up HP agreement, with a chunk of money sat there, but this is where guaranteed asset protection kicks in. But again, it's down to the knowledge. Your everyday customer doesn't understand GAP. They just see that as a logo on a shirt. My experience is a lot of salespeople don't actually sit down and physically go through the pros and cons. Each product has a feature. You've got to then find the benefit to the customer.
I think it's a fair assumption that if I walked into a dealership now and got to a stage of that purchase process, sat down with the salesman, we started doing some figures, and then all of a sudden, gap insurance, he says to me, I'm thinking, now I should either know about that, I should have researched it, but I don't know what it is, and all of a sudden I've got to make a decision within the next 30 seconds. It's a little off-putting.
The current Financial Conduct Authority rules straight that we have a TCF, treating customers fairly, and I don't kind of want to dig deep into that minefield, but everybody has the right to have an explanation of a product and then go away and think about it. Yes, we're excited about a purchase that we're trying to make, and invariably we're going to go, well, yes or no. People do go no because they just perceive it as another add-on product. It's another way of getting my money. But if people are customers are explained to what the product is, in my mind, why would you not have it? You know, if you're spending £15,000-20,000 on the latest BMW or Harley or whatever, that's a huge purchase. You're then putting a finance agreement on it to fund that purchase. And if something happens to that bike, can you call upon your reserves to go out and pay that off? But this is where GAP, Guaranteed Asset Protection, kicks in. Is it total GAP? Total GAP pays off a finance settlement. If you look on the internet, there are so many businesses selling gap insurance, you know, for minimal amounts of money. But is that product right for you? Especially if you've got a finance agreement on your bike. Sit down and listen to what the dealer says and make your choice. Don't see it as another way of having money extracted out your wallet.
And what other add-ons would you recommend as good value for a customer?
It's difficult to recommend because each customer is different.
Sure.
Some customers, if you offered them tyre insurance, for instance, you know, there are policies, and again, it's probably a throwback to the car dealership side of things, but bike tyres can be expensive. Not everybody can afford to go out and fit the latest Pirelli super sticky tyres. Some people see that as a benefit. Others are like, well, no, because I can pay 150 quid for a back tyre. They're going to be more annoyed by the fact that they've broken down or they've got a puncture miles from anywhere and they haven't got a puncture repair kit. So you've got tyre insurance. Again, it's about explaining it to the customer and letting the customer make their own informed choice as to whether it's of benefit to them. And the same with paint protection. Bikes, again, you know, it's a purchase of the heart. We love to polish them and clean them, but some people don't. So why would you not have some paint protection on? I don't want that. I just want to weigh those at my bike and get going again. But some people love to get involved with the cleaning process, you know. So again, is it a product that is of beneficial to the customer? And again, it's about the customer doing his own work and whether that's applicable to him, and it's about the dealer explaining that product. So an informed choice for the customer can be made.
So if you're an all-year-round rider riding through those salty, horrible conditions in the winter, then you're sort of...
buy a car.
Yeah. Well, car with paint protection.
Yes.
And what about on the used bike side? So eBay's been kicking about for 20-odd years now. That's clearly a very important part of a salesman's toolkit to flog his used bike range.
You can use that, yeah. I mean, my experience when I've been in the trade, there are people who will come along every now and then and trade in a bike that it's not of a required standard for a dealer to resell. So he's got to have an outlet. You've got people that specialise in that. You've obviously got auction houses. eBay is another thing. You know, it's a way of us to dispose of a bike, because a bike will always have value to somebody. You know, when it was new, it was the latest, greatest thing, costing 10, 12 grand. You know, at 10, 12 years old, it's more beneficial to the person that gets up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning in all weathers and goes and commutes on it to work. So yes, there is an outlet there. Obviously, as a customer buying off eBay, you pay your money, takes your choice. But yes, dealers do use eBay as an outlet.
And if an eagle-eyed customer has been into the showroom a couple of times over the last couple of weeks and they've seen a specific bike and they quite like the look of, and they're just biding their time, is it worth them hanging on? Is that stock likely to reduce? Surely at some point the dealership wants rid of a bike that's been kicking about for 3 months.
The dealership want that bike in, out and gone in the quickest time possible. Invariably a dealer will have some form of funding plan behind the scenes that pays for all their used stock. My advice is, where do you start?
Well, it's a risky game, isn't it?
It is.
You can't...
From a buyer's perspective, if that's the bike for you, if it ticks your research that you've done and ticks all the boxes, ring them up, put a deposit down on it. Because the only way a dealer is going to hold that bike for you is if there's a show of, what's the word I'm looking for, intent from you. Most dealers, in fact, all dealers should, if the bike isn't for the customer when they come to see it, return the deposit. I mean, if only for good publicity, you know. But 9 times out of 10, as I've said before, the customer has done the research. We live in a modern era now where we have that many communication devices with the outside world. We can drill down and know exactly what we're buying and what effectively its life is, because we can all do our own HPI check now. You know, you pay your 10, 15 quid or whatever, and you get a full history of what's happened with that bike, including mileage verification now, you know. In fact, normal customers probably know more than you guys.
Fair chance.
Yeah. So yeah, it's, you see a bike, the way you can play the waiting game, the longer the bike's in stock, the more the dealer is going to look at his pricing. I've worked for several different dealer groups, and they all have their own way of pricing used stock. There are certain dealer groups out there, the larger dealer groups, that will price to the market. So you know that when you've done your search on Auto Trader, for want of a better thing, you know their bike is the lowest like-for-like price out there. In which case, there's no argument, because you know that. You're always going to say, well, come on, you can do me a bit off. But the dealer's always going to stand firm and say, well, the only reason you're here is because you've seen our bike and you know it's the lowest like-for-like. So if you see it, if it ticks your boxes, get it bought, don't wait.
Martin, without going into too much of your own circumstances here, but if you were to walk into a dealership down the road here and you wanted to buy that particular bike because it's brand new and it's shining, it fits your purposes, what sort of things are starting to go through your mind about how I can get the best deal as the customer?
I'm actually the easiest person to sell to, because I've done my research and I just want to buy it. I shouldn't say that to people, because the minute I walk into a dealership, they're going to go, he's going to have this. What goes through my mind? What's the dealership like? Do I want to do a business transaction with Joe Bloggs working out of a backstreet garage that might not be here next week? Or do I want to do business with a nice dealership, somebody that makes me feel welcome, puts me at ease? Do I have great facilities? Is the service department a great backup? There's so many review sites out there now. Everybody has an opinion. So you can do a lot of your own research at home, and that's what I look for. What's the salesperson like? Does he care about me as a person? Because as a customer, I only see one salesperson. The salesperson sees hundreds of people, you know. But all I care about is that person caring about me. Is he looking after me? Is he welcoming? Is his manner with me conducive to me going, here's my money, you know, I want to do business with you? I've been in numerous bike dealerships and car dealerships and I've walked out because immediately somebody's pounced on me, and they've started bang, bang, bang straight away. Well, hang on a minute, have you had a bad weekend and not sold anything and I'm your last chance saloon? Because at that point I'm just going to walk away, because I don't want that. You know, I want to conduct my business in a calm, collected atmosphere that makes me feel at ease and also makes the dealer feel at ease. Because if both parties are happy, we're both going to do a deal that's mutually beneficial. And
do you think about wiggle room? Do you think about where you can cut corners as a customer, where you can get the best deal?
Always. Yeah. What do I want from a bike? Do I want a top box fitting? Do I want heated grips? You know, I suppose this is where the poetry term gamekeeper comes out in me. I would always look for something that I think a dealer can possibly have some movement on. There are things, I go back to a used bike pricing. If a dealer is pricing to a market and you know that's their policy, it's pointless trying to get money off a bike because they ain't going to move. And you've proved that by walking in. And the further you've travelled, the more you've proved to them that you're going to buy it anyway. So I will look for, you know, other things. Can I do something on the finance? Can I do something on an insurance product? Can I do something on some accessories? Sometimes it can be no, no, no. You know, I've worked in some prestige car dealerships in the past where I can't even give a set of rubber mats away because the margins are that tight and the vehicle's been priced so keenly to get the sale or to sell it on that I've not even got 90 quid to play with. Because remember, you know, when that bike's sold, apart from all the things we've discussed, like warranties, the services, MOTs, we've got to pay the salesman his wage. The dealership's got to be paid for. You know, there's a lot of people behind the scenes in the dealership that do all the admin work, do all the providence checks on a bike, because you're not going to want to buy a bike that's not had a thorough check of its entire life. You know, there are various other people like van driver, delivery guys, valeters. You've got the technicians in the workshop. You know, so there's a lot behind the scenes, and when you're only playing with very small margins in hundreds of pounds, fine. If you're going out and buying a Porsche, Porsche dealers probably kill me for this, but if you're going out and buying a Porsche, you might have a fair chunk of money to move about. But in the bike world, it's the real world. You've got very tight margins because everybody wants a slice of that pie.
Excellent. Some great advice, Martin. Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
You're welcome. Thank you ever so much.
And I hope you've all taken something from that, and we'll be going down to your local dealerships ready and armed now.
If you see me walking, by the way, I'll just stay behind the scenes.
If you've got anything you want to talk about, or if there's anything that you would like us to talk about in a future episode, if you've got any experiences you want to discuss with us, then leave them in the comments section below. But thanks for joining us, and until next time, on the next BikeSocial Full Chat. Cheers.